The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a yellowed envelope left under the door of my apartment in Rome. There was no return address, only a red wax seal bearing a symbol that looked like an upside-down tree. Inside, I found a fragment of a handwritten diary dated 1947 and a sepia photograph showing Father Pio gazing skyward with a look of terror I had never seen in any official image of the saint. On the back of the photo, in a trembling hand, were the words, "They capture the light, and the light weeps." That's how I began investigating what would become the most disturbing case of my career as a researcher of religious documents. What follows is the result of 3 years spent gathering testimonies, sealed records, and meetings with individuals who preferred to remain anonymous. Some may dismiss this account as speculation, urban legend, or conspiracy theory. Perhaps thinking that way is more comfortable. Yet there are documents, there are witnesses, and there are questions the Vatican has never answered. Francesco Forgione, known to the world as Father Pio, was a man marked by inexplicable phenomena from his youth. The stigmata on his hands, feet and side are merely the most famous manifestations of a life full of supernatural events. What few know is that his private writings, confiscated by the Vatican after his death in 1968, repeatedly mention creatures of light imprisoned in glass vessels, weeping tears that shine like stars. At first, these descriptions were thought to be metaphorical or poetic references to theological concepts. That's what Father Vittorio Manozzi, now 94, told me when I visited him at a small monastery on the outskirts of Turin. Manozzi knew Father Pio personally in the 1950s and was one of the few clerics authorized to read his unedited diaries. It was the winter of 1956, Manozzi recalled, his wrinkled hands trembling as he lit a candle, perhaps to ward off more than mere physical darkness. Pio was deeply disturbed. For days he refused to eat or speak. When he finally broke his silence, he told me about his summons to the Vatican, to an underground sector not included on any official architectural plan. According to Manozzi, Father Pio described rooms resembling laboratories, where luminous entities were confined under special glass domes marked with symbols reminiscent of Enochian seals, a mystical script attributed to angels and transcribed by the occultist John Dee in the 16th century. Father Pio claimed he recognized the symbols from his own visions. He told me, Manozzi continued in an almost inaudible whisper, that these were not demons, as some clerics believed. They were angels, or something like them, captured during what he called the continuous fall. Apparently, some have never stopped falling. The concept of a continuous fall has no basis in Orthodox Catholic theology. Traditionally, the angel's fall is portrayed as a one-time event when Lucifer and his followers were cast out of heaven. But apocryphal texts such as the Book of Enoch suggest a more complex cosmology, with multiple classes of celestial beings and separate moments of transgression. My research led me to the archives of the University of Bologna, where I found references to a group called the Custodians of the Descending Light, apparently active in the Vatican since at least the 15th century. Fragmented documents imply that this group was charged with locating, capturing, and containing entities that cross the veil between worlds. A 1721 decree signed by Pope Innocent III authorized the use of glass sanctified with martyrs' blood to construct containment chambers for uninvited visitors from the higher spheres. These documents align with strange reports from Vatican workers and guards over the centuries. Inexplicable lights, choir-like singing from empty rooms, and occasionally employees found in a catatonic state, murmuring about eyes that see through time. Most of these incidents were conveniently dismissed as hallucinations, mass hysteria, or poisoning from ancient tomb gases. In a private library in Florence, I discovered what appeared to be a torn page from Father Pio's diaries, dated March 1957. In it, the friar wrote, "Cardinal Marasini showed me the third level today. They are studying the beings, extracting something from them. I saw tubes like those used in hospitals, but the fluid they collected glowed like phosphorescence on the sea at night. The cardinal called it angelic essence and said the church has used it since the Council of Nicaea to strengthen the faith of the wavering. I felt sick seeing the suffering on those luminous faces. They recognized me. They called me by the name I had before birth. The reference to Cardinal Marasini likely points to Cardinal Alfred Marasini, a controversial figure during the pontificate of Pius XIII. Marasini oversaw a loosely defined department known as Historical and Archaeological Research, which received substantial funding despite producing few academic publications. After his sudden death in 1962, all projects under his department were transferred to the direct authority of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, and the records were sealed. I must note that my interest in these discoveries has placed me in increasingly unsettling situations. Emails vanish from my server without explanation. Twice, I returned home to find my apartment ransacked, nothing of value taken, only my case notes disturbed. I received 3 phone calls during which all I heard was the sound of glass rubbing against glass, followed by whispers in an unidentifiable language. Perhaps you, reading these extraordinary accounts, have also noticed strange interferences in your own life, odd synchronicities, vivid dreams of luminous beings, the sensation of being watched. If so, know you are not alone. Thousands report similar experiences after encountering this information. To continue receiving investigations into hidden secrets like this, consider subscribing to the channel. There are forces that prefer these. Truths remain in shadow, but I firmly believe that knowledge, no matter how unsettling, is preferable to comfortable ignorance. In 2017, I met Elena Vasquez, a former Vatican cleaning staff member who worked there from 1999 to 2008. She described areas of the complex strictly off-limits, even to trusted personnel. There was a corridor on the 3rd basement level, near the secret archives. Elena told me, in a noisy cafe in Naples, constantly glancing over her shoulder. No one could enter without special clearance. But once, during a blackout in 2003, the security doors failed and opened for a few minutes. I was doing the night cleaning in that sector when I saw it. Elena described a circular room with 12 glass chambers arranged like the numbers on a clock. In each chamber hovered a luminous figure. They weren't human, she explained, more like patterns of light, vaguely resembling human forms but with multiple limbs and what looked like wings made of pure geometry, constantly reshaping. And they emitted a sound, like thousands of voices singing a single continuous note. Elena was discovered by security and escorted out. The next day, she was reassigned within the Vatican and forced to sign additional confidentiality agreements. 3 months later, she was dismissed for breach of security perimeter. Elena's account matches an anonymous physicist's testimony. He claims he was hired by the Vatican in 2010 to evaluate quantum anomalies in non-classified biological specimens. In a post on a deep web forum, he described entities composed of matter in a permanent quantum superposition, theoretically impossible under known physics. These beings exist in multiple states simultaneously, he wrote. They are not just interdimensional, they are multidimensional. Their consciousness seems distributed across different space-time configurations. The most disturbing part is that they appear to recognize specific humans as future selves or past selves of themselves. This extraordinary claim echoes unsettling parallels in ancient Gnostic texts, which describe angels as seeds of divine consciousness scattered throughout creation, some dormant in human form. The idea that certain humans might be partial manifestations of angelic entities is heretical in traditional Catholicism, yet resonates in mystical traditions from Sufism to Hasidism. Returning to Father Pio, numerous testimonies indicate that after his 1956 visit to the Vatican, he experienced even more intense bilocation episodes, appearing in two places at once. The most notable occurrence was in April 1957, when he was seen celebrating Mass in San Giovanni Rotondo while simultaneously observed in the Vatican gardens, apparently trying to access an entrance to the underground levels. Cardinal Ottaviani, then head of the Holy Office, the predecessor to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, reportedly ordered that Father Pio be placed under strict surveillance after this incident. Internal memos I obtained from an anonymous church source indicate Ottaviani feared Pio may have been influenced by contained entities and posed a risk of doctrinal contamination. Between 1957 and 1963, Father Pio underwent extensive physical and psychological examinations commissioned by the Vatican. Officially, these tests aim to validate his stigmata and other supernatural phenomena. But the scope of the investigations, which included brainwave monitoring during ecstatic states and blood samples taken during bilocation episodes, suggests deeper objectives. A particularly intriguing document, dated 1960 and signed by Dr. Giuseppe Cascio, reports non-human cellular anomalies found in Pio's blood. It mentions microscopic crystalline structures in his plasma that respond to electromagnetic stimuli in an organized manner, suggesting a form of cellular intelligence. A handwritten note adds, "Compare with samples from chambers 3, 7, and 9. In July 1962, Father Pio sent a sealed letter to Pope John XXIII. The contents remain undisclosed, but according to the Pope's personal secretary, Robert Tucci, Pio's letter caused the pontiff to pray in anguish for 3 consecutive days before ordering a full review of protocols concerning special artifacts kept beneath St. Peter's. What changed after that review is still a mystery. However, it is notable that during the Second Vatican Council, 1962-1965, an unofficial committee of cardinals, theologians, and, curiously, 2 physicists and a metaphysician met in private sessions to discuss what internal documents called eschatological implications of continuous angelic presence. These meetings are absent from the Council's official records, but appear in private correspondence between Cardinal Koenig of Vienna and theologian Karl Rahner. In a letter dated November 1963, Koenig wrote, "The question of these visitors is not merely theological, but ontological. If they are truly what Father Pio claims, our understanding of salvation history may require drastic revision." Another disturbing aspect involves Father Pio's medical records toward the end of his life. He experienced inexplicable conditions, periods of light emanating from his skin during sleep, unexplained weight loss of up to 20 kilograms in a week, only to regain it days later, and what his doctors termed temporal dysphagia episodes, times, when he spoke as if inhabiting different historical periods, accurately detailing future and past events. Dr. Antonio Massa, who treated Pio in his final months, kept a private clinical diary, archived until 2010. He recorded a particularly unsettling conversation in which Pio, during one such episode, spoke of events that would occur decades after his death, including specific details about future technologies and global crises. Even more disconcerting, Pio shifted between first and third person, at times referring to himself as we, and using terms in a language Massa described as resembling ancient Hebrew, but with a grammatical structure impossible for human tongues. When asked about these predictions after returning to normal, Father Pio apparently explained, "They are not predictions, they are memory. Time is not linear for those outside it. I see because they see, and they see me seeing." The week before his death, Pio gave a sealed envelope to his confessor, Father Pellegrino Funicelli, with instructions to open it only 50 years after his passing. On September 23, 2018, exactly half a century after Pio's death, rumors circulated that the envelope was opened in a private Vatican ceremony. Its contents have never been made public. However, a Vatican official who attended the opening told me, under condition of anonymity, that inside was a single sheet of paper bearing a complex circular diagram and a Latin phrase, "Angeli in vitro, veritas in tempore," angels in glass, truth in time. My investigation has uncovered other disturbing leads. In 1986, a young priest named Marco Fiorini disappeared while working in the Vatican's secret archives. Officially, he suffered a mental breakdown and was sent to a monastery in Switzerland to recover. But no record of this monastery exists, and Fiorini's family lost all contact with him. Before his disappearance, Fiorini was cataloguing documents related to World War I, specifically Vatican correspondence with German scientists on unconventional research. A colleague claimed Fiorini discovered documents describing 1917 and 1918 experiments using technology derived from angelic knowledge to create weapons harnessing etheric manipulation. Another intriguing incident occurred in 2005, when researchers, using MRI scanners to map ancient tunnels beneath St. Peter's Basilica, detected density anomalies in certain areas. Cavities that matched no known structures, some containing what looked like self-sustaining electromagnetic fields of unknown origin. The project was abruptly terminated and the data classified by the Vatican. In 2012, Italian theoretical physicist Sergio Bertolucci, then CERN's director of research, made an enigmatic public statement suggesting the Large Hadron Collider might open portals to extra dimensions where beings could exist, and that something might come here or we might send something there. Few know Bertolucci served as an undisclosed Vatican consultant between 2008 and 2010. Leaked documents reveal the Vatican took a keen interest in dark energy and potential links to historical accounts of angelic manifestations. A source within CERN, speaking anonymously, told me certain collider experiments produced data patterns remarkably similar to energy samples provided by the Vatican, and that a small group of physicists and theologians is now studying possible convergence points between quantum mechanics and traditional angelology. Perhaps the most unsettling pattern in this investigation is the string of accidents, disappearances, and unexplained deaths that seem to follow anyone digging too deep. Since I began this research, 3 of my sources have died under questionable circumstances, and one vanished entirely after claiming to have photographic evidence of the subterranean facilities. I myself have experienced disquieting phenomena, electronics failing in my presence, sounds of wings flapping when I'm alone, and vivid dreams in which I'm led through white corridors to rooms containing the luminous entities described by Father Pio. In these dreams, they show me symbols I cannot recall upon waking, but which leave me with a profound sense of urgency. 2 weeks ago, I received an anonymous letter containing only an old key and GPS coordinates pointing to a deserted chapel outside Rome. I have yet to decide whether to investigate in person, especially since, in recent nights, I've noticed strange lights outside my window and fleeting silhouettes watching my apartment. Several apocryphal scholars argue that biblical references to angels bound in chains, in Jude 1:6 and 2 Peter 2:4 may be literal rather than metaphorical. The Book of Enoch, canonical only in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, elaborates on these watcher angels and describes technologies and knowledge they brought to humanity, knowledge which, according to the text, should be inaccessible to mortals. It's intriguing that medieval alchemical texts mention angelic essence as a key ingredient in creating the philosopher's stone. Paracelsus wrote of living light imprisoned in crystal as the primal substance for transmutation. Traditionally, these references were read metaphorically, but in light of these findings, they take on a potentially more literal meaning. As a researcher, I admit the line between objective investigation and personal obsession has grown ever thinner. There are nights I wake absolutely certain I'm being observed by something beyond the visible spectrum, something aware of my inquiry. My research continues, albeit with increasing caution. I recently contacted a group of former Vatican employees who claim to have witnessed the angels in glass, as they call them. We are compiling evidence and testimonies, though it is difficult to separate genuine accounts from deliberate misinformation. Part of me fears I have gone too far, that some knowledge, once obtained, cannot be unlearned. Last week, my doctor found anomalies in my blood work, microscopic crystals in my plasma that labs could not identify. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or maybe, as Father Pio suggested, contact with these entities leaves a physical mark, a gradual transformation. Some questions remain unanswered. Why would the Vatican keep angels captive? What is the purpose of this angelic essence they collect? And perhaps the most disturbing question, if these beings are truly fallen angels, continuously falling through time and space, what does that imply about the nature of the fall? Is it an ongoing event? And what does that mean for traditional theology and our understanding of time? As I write these words, I notice a strange pattern of light on the ceiling, one that corresponds to no known external source. Maybe it's just my imagination, overactive after months of immersing myself in this subject. Or perhaps it is something more. Have you ever felt an inexplicable sense that there are layers to reality beyond our senses? Experienced déjà vu so intense, it felt like memories from another life rather than mere neurological glitches. Woken up convinced you were being watched by something outside the human spectrum. It may not be a coincidence you found this document. As Father Pio hinted in his final writings, there are invisible lines connecting those who need to know. If you have dreamed of angels in glass, heard incomprehensible chants, or noticed patterns of light moving with conscious intent, perhaps you are connected to this story in ways you have yet to understand. The truth about what Father Pio witnessed in the Vatican's underground levels may never be fully revealed, but the questions endure. What happens when we capture fragments of the divine? What price do we pay for forbidden knowledge? And if angels continue to fall, who or what is causing their descent?